Hello, welcome back to NTheRealestWay Podcast. I'm so happy to be back. From the time I recorded the other podcast and posted it, there has been so many more developments, so many changes in everything. I went back and watched my podcast and listened to it so many times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with myself in a way where, of course, it's healthy, but I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, I really stepped out. I stepped out of my comfort zone and I did something that I was like, I don't know. I don't want to, I don't want to be judged. I don't care anymore. I don't care because I feel like this is something that God has put me on this earth to do. One of the many things. And one thing I've learned is to follow the path, the purpose that God has given you. Follow that path. So this is me following that path. And like I said before, the changes and the updates, oh my goodness. The first podcast, which was a success, was meeting people where they are. And I was thinking, what should my next podcast be about? God, give me a sign, what should it be about? I was like, leaving people where they are. But the real situation about that was I kept on just like living life and like, okay, I'm gonna wait for the perfect time to where this actually connects to my life so I can have a real depth explanation about it. And it did. Of course, it wasn't intentional. I was just, living my life. But in case anybody didn't know, I'm in the military right now. I'm active duty. I'm stationed in Korea. I'm an A9 Alpha, ammunition stock control and accounting specialist. And we had this brief. I can't say too much about it, but it was about a scenario. It was about a scenario that literally everybody had different opinions about, most kind of the same, but mine was the only one that was really broad and that stood out. It was brash. I'm going to explain this scenario. I'm going to explain what happened, and I'm going to tell you what I've learned about myself and what I need to do better. So the scenario is about this medieval time, I guess, where there are kings and queens and all this other stuff. The Baroness and the Baron, that's the two people, they're married. And the Baroness decides, I'm just do a short explanation. The Baroness decides to cheat on her husband, who's the king, and leaves. He finds out. She gets killed. And the whole conversation is, who was responsible for her death? And who was responsible? And I was like, the answer is simple. The Baron was the king, and the man that he told to kill her was responsible. And I thought it was simple. I thought it was something that was, I was like, oh, what? Like in my mind, I'm thinking, how could this even be a conversation? It's so simple. It is literally simple. But then I heard everybody else's opinion, and the thing that I regret, but I'm happy I did, was I lashed out. And it actually pointed out one very distinct thing that I was lying to myself about on a consistent basis about my ego, about me thinking this is right, that is right, do this, do that in this way. And I decided to react on emotion and not logic about what I told myself and what I told other people. I was just talking about in my previous podcast, meeting people where they are. To meet them where they are. That's not to agree with them, to argue with them, to bash them, to do anything of that sort, but to meet them where they are. You're not going to agree with everybody. Everybody's not going to agree with you, and that's okay. But me, I tend to let my emotions, my ego get the best of me. And before this, I was talking about, it was never an ego thing about being in these positions. It was most definitely an ego thing. I still right now deal with my ego. And there's nothing wrong with having an ego, but having control over it, not letting it control you. That's what I need. But back to the story, I was lashing like, what are you talking about? Y'all are so dumb, just cussing. In a meeting, you don't know what you're talking about. She was never in the wrong. I had so much emotion. I was so angry. How could you blame her? Yes, I'm not saying what she did was okay, but I'm saying that she didn't deserve to die. And that's not something that you should equate to death. Like, it's not like, or equate to cheating. Like, you shouldn't equate death and cheating to the same thing. If I'm unhappy in a relationship, I would leave. And that's why I say I would leave. There's so many people who have different opinions about things, and I can't make them choose what I want them to choose. We can have a discussion, a civil discussion, and talk about things. And we both can have a perspective that we didn't have before. But I was just lashing out. They were lashing out at me. And it was just a whole conversation, you know? And I was just like, I felt it so deeply. I was so angered. And people I cared about was in that conversation. And we didn't see eye to eye. And that it has impacted my entire relationship with them. I can't even look at them the same. And yes, I'm speaking about healing and, you know, like my ego was involved, but it's still inside of me of, I can't believe that you would think that way. That's what gets me. That's what hurts me, is that the fact that people that I'm around could even think that way, that could justify somebody's death. Of course, this is just a scenario, but the principle of the situation, it always matters. It always matters to me. It matters. Every single thing you say, it matters to me. But I was sitting there talking about it, and I was like, oh my goodness, God has literally given me what I asked for. And it's in its own way, God has given me something that I asked for. And this goes back to everything I experienced. But when I was in high school, before I was leaving, throughout the whole time, I was like, oh, I cannot wait to leave. I can't wait to actually find people in my mindset of what I want to do. And I'm like, God, please move me away from all these people, far, far away from my family, from my friends. I want a new start. Okay? I asked God for that. I prayed to God about that. God said, okay, here you go. I'm here. I'm like, what in the world? I'm confused. Like, but then it hit me like many times before. This is what I asked for. And God gave me what I asked for. And there's a lesson in everything that God has given me. So now I'm very intentional with what I say now. I'm asking God, what is best for me from you? What do you think is best for me? And then I will do that. I will serve what you think is best for me. Because clearly what I think is best for me is the opposite. I'm miles and hundreds of miles away from my friends and family now. There has been a gap, a humongous gap between us. And I cannot wait till the day I can go back to the States and just be with those people, because I truly do miss them. I really do. I really, really do. But the whole conversation was about meeting people where they are, but also understanding where that line is, understanding what barriers, boundaries, some things, meeting people where they are, it's okay. For instance, when I use the instance about running, meeting people where they are, if we're on a team, that the slowest person is the fastest, meeting them where they are. You compromise. That's okay. That's their limitation. But sometimes meeting people where they are, it also means leaving them where they are. I met you here. I understood who you are, what you do, and what your values are in life. But I don't have to, of course, not agree with them, but I don't have to put myself in a position to where I have to accept it. Meet you where you are, and I can leave you where you are. You can do that. It's okay. If I don't see the value, the purpose of you in my life, if you're not contributing to my life, I have every right to remove you. And you do too, for the same for me. If somebody was to tell me, hey, Marquise, I just don't see a purpose of you in my life. It's not going anywhere. I wish you the best in life. Goodbye. I would say, thank you for telling me that. Goodbye. I wish you the best in life as well. And that would be it. Meet people where they are, but you sometimes have to leave them where they are. And I have been in so many positions where I should have been left where I was and kept going, And it's always, this way, that way. It's always a perception, It's all about perception over reality. What my perception is and your perception, they're two different things. They're two different things. We will always have different ways of looking at life, and that is totally okay. Sometimes you can agree. Sometimes you can work things out between two people. Sometimes there will never be an agreement, and that is okay. That is okay. Meet people where they are and leave them where they are. I'm thankful. I'm so thankful that God showed me this. I needed something to put this in motion. It was a click. And I said, I got it, God. I got it. And I'm not saying after this I'll be perfect. I'm not saying my ego won't have control over me sometimes. I will do my best to check myself. But this is another step in a direction of me becoming a better person, getting closer to God, and finding the right people to be around, finding people who have the same ideals as me. And I'm not saying exactly the same, but similar. I don't want to have to disagree with you about the fact if somebody should live or die, if that's fair for them, because it's never fair. I don't mean in any way, in regards to anybody. But yeah, the reason why I actually made this podcast too, I want to add to, is because I wanted to talk about in the realest way. This is me in the realest way. Right now, meeting me where I am right now. I'm not the same as I was yesterday. I'm here now. People need to meet me where I am now. The person that you're expecting that I was yesterday to be right here, right now, that person is gone. That's in the past. You need to meet me right here. This is where I am right now. Now I'm at a state of mind of, okay, I'm meeting people. They're meeting me where I am. What's next? Okay, do we grow? Do we leave? You know, what's the next step in whatever's going to go on? So that's what I wanted to talk about. And that's why I made this podcast in the realest way. Because I wanted to talk about what I experienced, what I've seen in the realest way. And I find that mind-blowing that everything is actually coming together, connecting. I also want to add that when I was doing all this setup of stuff, I was so confusing. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm adding this. Like I was editing the podcast and, trying to find the platforms to put it on. And I was just like so overwhelmed. But actually, once I took a breath and, I actually fixed it, I was so happy with the outcome. I was so happy. I got it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. I'm thankful. I'm so thankful. This has been an amazing experience for me. Speaking, talking, I'm so happy. And one thing that I'm also happy about too is the support I got. It wasn't a lot of people, but it was the people who I found that was very important to me in my life. And I'm so thankful for their support, their shares, their views of them listening to me. That's what matters to me. You found some way to put what I said into a way to where it helps you or helps somebody else. That's why I made this podcast in the realest way, to speak about my experiences, healing, growing, my setbacks, everything. So I could find a connection with other people. So we all could live in the realest way and become better people. That's what I wanted. And when people was talking to me and supporting me, and I was so happy I was about to cry. I was literally so overwhelmed. I did not know what to do. So I appreciate all my friends, my family for listening to this podcast and commenting and just all the shares and everything. I appreciate it. I am overwhelmed with happiness. So the main discussion about meeting people where they are, leaving people where they are. Know how to go in the direction that you want to go in. Everything ain't gotta be, I met you, then I leave you. It's not always the case. Sometimes meeting people where they are, you actually gain compassion, understanding of who that person is. Meeting them where they are is such a emotional, caring. It's something very strong in the emotional way of meeting somebody where they are. You understand more about that person. You grow with that person. You learn more about them. Meeting them where they are. And even after all of that, you can still decide, hey, there's nothing wrong with anything that you have going on for yourself. But sometimes we don't collide. We're humans. Everybody's not going to get along. I remember one thing that Taraji P. Henson said was, people always want to be, oh, I'm the best. I want to be the greatest. You will never be the greatest because everybody will not find what you're saying in the same way. Everybody will not understand it more than somebody else can say, and they won't understand it. It will never be that way. It will never be that way. So meet people where they are, because this is where I am. And I want to find a connection with other people in a way to where we go together. This is what this whole podcast is about. Finding people with the like mind who want to grow, who want to do this, who want to become better people. Meet those people where they are, but also have the mind to decide what you want in your life. Because what you want is important too. And back to the ego thing. I was so well in my ego. I had to check myself. I had to say, oh, you need to reel it in. That one of the instructors, one of the people that was giving us the teaching, he was talking about emotions and sometimes having a professional environment, which I agreed about. But he was like, don't have any emotion. I was like, okay, no, that's crazy. You need your emotion. You know, everybody needs their emotions, but have that professional sense to meet people where they are. Everybody's not gonna agree with you. Even if what they're saying is wrong, they're not gonna meet you where you are, especially not by yelling at them, arguing with them. I wouldn't listen to nobody if they yelling at me either. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, what do you really want to get into? You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to just take a deep breath, breathe, and meet them where they are, because you can gain an understanding. That's what I'm trying to say. Meeting people where they are, you gain an understanding about them. And then you can determine what's next. And sometimes it's very enlightening. I'm so thankful. I'm grateful. This weekend, I get to go with people I love out into the world and to have fun. I implore you. I was always a homebody. I was very intentional with who I wanted to have in my life. I didn't want anybody around me who was a weird person who, you know, the energy was off and they would do certain things that was like, okay, no. So I waited, and I was kind of hesitant to go places, but I found people that I actually care about, that I actually love me, that support me. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. And like I always say at the end of my podcast, I give thanks to the utmost of the highest power, God. Because none of this would be possible without God. None of it. So, thank you for listening to this podcast. I'm grateful for you taking the time out of your day. I hope you have a blessed night, morning, whatever it is for you. And this is NTheRealestWay Podcast. Out.